The last couple of days on the homestead, the weather has just been average, and as a result of not paying close enough attention to our off-grid solar power system, we lost power in the middle of the night. We made a video a little while ago about our system and answered some of the top questions that were quite technical in nature and to do with costs and how we set it all up. But since then, we've had a number of questions about what the realities of living with an off-grid solar power system are like. And I thought, what better way to answer some of those questions than for Kirsty and I to sit down and have a genuine conversation about what our life is like out here, especially with regards to a solar power system. This video will be a little bit of a different format to what we've been producing so far. So if you like it and you want to see more like this, drop us a comment down below. We might just be inclined to film more conversations like this one. But for now, I hope you enjoy this conversation about the realities of living with off-grid solar power.
If you knew then what you knew now, would you still go off-grid?
Yeah, but we're the kind of people that do the research. So it's not really I didn't dive into the deep end of the pool with the blindfold on either. So
All romantic ideas of it being easy and seamless and...
So absolutely I would, but it was already part of overall philosophy of how we wanted to live, and it just, of course it fits that philosophy. And the truth is, we made the decision about this property and living here knowing full well there is no power supply to this property. There's no utilities, there's no water supply, there's no septic system,
Not
there's
even
no
a bin service.
all of those. There's a road, and if you even want to call it that.
Yeah.
But so all of those decisions were, okay, if we do this, we are going to be making up for all of those, things that society would normally provide for you. And it wasn't out of some I'm, screw you society, I'm not going to rely on you for anything. It was just like the reality of this particular property. So
we really did have to grow into that. It's been years. It's been nearly 10 years since we bought this. We've had to grow. We've had the time and we've made the decision to grow into this before we even moved here.
And it's not like we didn't consider alternatives either. Like when the neighbours down the road paid probably... $100,000 maybe to bring power up to their property, and then we were like, oh, what if it just came another kilometre further? How much would that cost? And so we did the maths on it. I might have a couple of years ago gone, okay, that's probably worth it to not have to worry about it. And maybe ask me in 5 years, because, I think I've done the maths on this, and I think it works out in our favour after about 3 or 4 years, but we might have a major breakdown of our system.
You never know what's going to happen.
Or I already am thinking about upgrading our battery bank by another 50%. Well, there's another few $1,000s if we do that.
You don't know these things unless you do them, though.
Yep.
Unless you try them. And give it a good shot. Not like, it's been a week and I hate it. But really, experience the whole year, all seasons.
And you already have to be in that mindset posture of I'm going to adapt to my environment and what it's telling me about how I can live, not I'm going to force and forge my kind of consumer-oriented mindset into this space, and I'm not going to put a giant oven in. I mean, living in a tiny home, like you said, that has probably been one of the first and best steps we did, because it already got us thinking that way.
Say our solar really kicks in by, let's say, 10 o'clock at the moment in the morning. If I'm putting dinner on at 10 and it's cooking all day, it's ready to go by dinner time, I'm not using gas, but I'm also not using heat.
Yeah.
When it's dark.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you reckon gas would be more expensive than putting petrol in the generator and running the generator for an hour?
Well, how much do we spend on gas? I think I budget $120 a fortnight.
Yeah, okay. So $10 a day nearly.
120, no, one of those big gas bottles is 155. That's our hot water. So really it's the 9 kilos, and we get 2 a fortnight. So that's $60. Maybe it's 120 a month.
Yeah, I think we work out
150 a month.
Half our gas goes to hot water for mostly showers.
Not skimping on that.
And half our gas goes to cooking.
Yeah.
So we're spending $5 a day
on gas
for cooking. $5 would get you 2 litres of petrol, a little bit more.
But when the batteries weren't working, that's all we needed to put in.
Yeah, that's interesting. When we were down to half batteries, 2 litres of petrol would run the generator for an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending if it...
And that's all we needed to just boost us till the morning.
Interesting. So actually, it would be more cost effective for us to run
the generator,
appliances and the generator
than cook with gas.
Yeah, wow.
But like, if I want to cook a steak, if I want to cook, if I want to fry, if I want to, like, the slow cooker only works for certain things, and we can only eat those things. That's fine, but like, that's not realistic, particularly as the gardens start producing and we can be a bit more dynamic with what we're eating. That's not always realistic, but when I want to cook dinner is when we're not making solar.
Yeah, right. So,
but that's what the batteries are for.
Yeah, but the ideal is neither, right? Neither petrol nor gas. Solar's free. Don't count the equipment because it goes to lots of things. Just when it comes to cooking, solar is free. So how do you maximise? The cooking would be one of our biggest activities that's hard to shift the time of. You can change the time that you water the gardens, for example. So if I water the gardens at 6 in the morning, the pump comes on, it's 1500 watts, like I'm tapping straight into batteries because I don't have any sunlight energy on the solar panels. So just move my garden watering, it's not a big issue.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I can wash clothes whenever. I can have a shower whenever. Coffee.
But that's also not entirely true as well, is it? Because, I mean, you're working, so there's, you've got a time. I'm working. There's a time that you want to be up and working by, so you want to have a shower by a certain time, so...
I definitely have enjoyed the switch up. Like, before we moved out here, mornings were always just, like, manic. Just got to get up, got to get to work. Like, they weren't peaceful. But we can't use too much power. In the morning particularly is probably when we're our most vulnerable, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
There hasn't been sunlight all night. So, like, the other day when we kind of got up and hit it hard and started working at 6 o'clock in the morning, and like, we didn't even think, like, we were like, it's springtime, it's warmer, let's get up. Washing machines going, showers are going, coffee machines going, stereos going, everything's kind of happening. I was doing dishes and all of it. And then, like, boom, no power. Yeah. And she just was like, the slow mornings of... slow in pace, but also slow in what we do that draws that big power. I've really enjoyed that. Really, really enjoyed that.
It's you've got to work on your thinking about that though, because we're highly productive people, so to kind of like sleep in a little bit and have a slow coffee and maybe read one more chapter of your book.
5 more chapters of my book.
But those are things we'd never normally do. And you kind of feel
a little bit guilty.
Yeah, and a bit lazy about it. But there's an intentionality behind it.
Well, there's a reason for it now. Like, watch me milk that.
Yeah.
But we also, like, traditionally, we've enjoyed doing productive things in the afternoon that are meaningfully productive, like in the garden or working on whatever projects that we want to work on. So we're actually milking the daylight hours. So we've really just, like, adjusted our lives around our daylight hours. We do eat dinner a little bit later because we're both, like, in the garden until last possible light.
Yeah.
Then we cook dinner. I think that's offset by the fact that we can take it slow in the mornings.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a privilege, really, to be able to decide that for your own day.
Yeah, right. You're not locked into a 9 to 5 or somebody else's, schedule.
And I mean, my MacBook, like, it would give me 6 hours of power?
Yeah.
Like, so I could be, and I have been productive in the mornings when it's quiet.
Yeah.
Just on battery, like, that's no problem.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, that's another thing. It's not just the batteries of the solar system that you're considering. It's also the batteries of your devices. Like they're kind of low power devices anyway, but you do sort of have to think about that. It's like, oh, well, if I charge stuff overnight, if I add up every iPhone and iPad and laptop and, Bluetooth speaker and all of those things, I could probably see that tapping 30, 40, 50 watts of power. Doesn't seem like much, but just add it into the mix over the course of the night, that might be an extra half an hour that you could turn the coffee machine on early in the morning, for example, if you didn't do that. So then it's like, okay, well, how do you make sure you're mindful to charge those things during the day? Because aren't you using them during the day? Well, yeah.
Yeah, because like normally you'd get home from work, you'd do your thing, you'd have your shower, you'd put your stuff on charge, and it'd charge overnight, so it's available to you in the morning, right? But really, we're going to bed with fully charged phones, fully charged devices.
Yep.
Like this morning with no power, you couldn't check, because no power means no internet. Like there's nothing to do, you can't check in on anything because there's no internet, and if there's no internet, there's definitely no connectivity.
What do you mean?
Not that that's a bad thing.
Oh, you mean just like jumping like social media and checking your email and that sort of stuff? Yeah.
It's not, I don't mind that though.
Yeah.
At all.
It is nice, but then also you've got to kind of think through like what's changed on your system since last time. So when we were going through winter with only half our batteries, and I knew, if we ran the generator at night for an hour, we'd be okay, and we'd kind of just time it just right, and you'd be watching it, fingers crossed, and then the sun kicks in and it's back up again. And then now we've got our batteries back to where they need to be, but then last night just kind of making that mistake and not paying attention. And I even thought through, but I was still thinking about what we were like in the winter, and it's like, oh well, I guess I don't have to worry too much about the freezer, like it'll keep stuff frozen even if the power goes off at 3 in the morning, which it was 3 in the morning.
Is that what it went off?
Yeah, you can check the graph and it sort of tells you, when stuff stopped. And so I thought through all of those things, like what's going to go off. Yeah, that's not a problem, that's not a problem, that's not a problem. Completely forgetting that we've got an incubator on at the moment, and I've got eggs that
are about to start hatching.
4 days away from hatching. Now, they might have stayed warm.
No.
I don't know. We won't know.
It's the coldest part of the morning as well.
Yeah, that's the worst part of it. And it's not like they're super insulated, because I just haven't been worried about it, because we've got plenty of power to run an incubator 24/7.
Yeah.
Just didn't even click. So every little change you make to your system, you kind of have to reevaluate your whole thinking about, okay, how's this going to impact our overnight usage? What if the power goes out? Will that matter? I even have, and I need to dig it out, but I've even got these like power off alarms that you can kind of hook up, and well, that wouldn't work because they're Wi-Fi. I need power for the Wi-Fi. Just things like that. Like I'm so used to just having, that safety net
available. Yeah, always there.
Yeah. How would I even do that? Because the alarm on the incubator goes off when the temperature drops too low, but if the whole system goes off and you're asleep.
I would normally wake up when the fan goes off. But I didn't.
I turned it off last night.
Because that would have woken me up.
Interesting. Yeah, because I was doing the calculations. I'm like, all right, I reckon that's about 70 watts. So, we're going to be 10 hours. That's 700 watts. Because you just didn't want to put the generator on at 9:30. Well, it was just 9:30, and I was like, oh, there's people asleep already. Yeah. I kind of can't be bothered. And you've got to time it just right. So you've got to either put like exactly the right amount of petrol in it, or get up again at like 10 o'clock.
With your broken foot.
And wander over there and switch it off.
I could have done that.
Yeah, I know, but it was
it
was a calculated decision, but I just didn't do all the calculations. Yeah, so even turning the fan off, or I didn't realise that
would have alerted me. Not that would we have done anything about that at 2 or 3 in the morning?
No, because I probably would have had the same thought. I probably would have gone like, oh, the power's off, but that's all right. Like, it's cold, so freezers and fridges are going to stay cold for a couple of hours.
Do you know what I think happened? I think when we got back up to our normal capacity with batteries, I think we relaxed a lot more than we probably should have, because we're like, that we're back to full capacity with our batteries now, not a problem. And this winter we haven't had many cloudy days. It's been spectacularly clear, right? So we've just gone, oh, we've got our batteries, we're fine, not really paying attention to, like, it's cloudy today, like, we're going to have to pay attention.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that was because as we were going through those winter months with only half our batteries, we were super mindful and we were doing extra activities like running the generator an hour a day. And so probably in the back of our minds, we're thinking, it's all of that we're doing, and we're just getting through, power's not going out, that sort of thing. So then the batteries come back to full capacity, we get our replacement battery, and then you're right, we relaxed, but we also relaxed our just general usage as well. And I'm tracking that at the moment now. Like I went back to, well, particularly when we started, and that's the great thing about the system, it's got like all the data, it's recording. And I looked at April, May, and kind of our average daily power consumption, like in a 24-hour period, was 16 kilowatt hours. And so that's pretty good. I mean, compared to an average household, that's pretty good. And we've got, theoretically 20 kilowatt hours of battery storage. And we were making, like back then anyway, March, April, like around 18, 20 kilowatt hours of energy going into batteries or into our daily use during the day. Now I'm looking at it and it's like 20, 21, 22, and it's just the slightest amount of change. Like Alia's moved here.
We bought that big deep freezer.
We already had some ideas when we moved here because your parents are living off grid, and we'd sort of done some of the research, so we knew a little bit about some of the changes we were going to have to make. I guess the question is what have we discovered in terms of, and so we started pretty low key. Well, I mean, we started out camping essentially, and with
living in a tiny house has informed some of those decisions as well. It's not just about power usage; it's about space and efficiency of space, as well as efficiency of power. Like you live in a normal 4-bedroom house, like whatever. You're not really thinking about, you've got your kettles and your toasters and your blenders and your appliances for everything.
Oh, because you've got the space to store those things.
Store them, or you've got the bench space or anything like that. We don't have a kettle, we don't have a toaster. We do have a coffee machine, and that gives us instant hot water.
We made that decision from the... Oh, that's true. That gives us boiling water.
That gives us instant hot water.
But in saying that, the first thing we did was put it on a timer. It was a non-negotiable. We wanted our morning coffee or coffees.
I might be living off grid, but I am not slumming it with not good coffee. That is just not happening.
So, but even like I'm saying, we went into that with an intentionality of, okay, well, if we set up this, timer device and it's cool because I can log into it and go.
You turn the coffee machine on while you're still in bed.
Check the power. Oh, look, the batteries are at 40%. I can afford to turn the coffee machine on.
It's normally when I'm like, can you make me a coffee?
Yeah. Yeah, whereas in the past, I would have just put, so many times I would have just left that coffee machine on 24/7 because who cares?
Want a hot chocolate at night time? You get it.
It's on, it's whatever. Or even if I did have it on a timer, it'd be let's get it to come on at 5 a.m. so it's ready for us no matter what time.
So it's available to us whenever I want.
Yeah.
So appliances, space has helped my brain with that. But also, we don't have a kettle, we don't have a toaster, we don't have an oven.
Yeah.
But we do have a coffee machine with instant hot water, like an espresso machine. It's not just a coffee machine. It's she's power hungry. And the grinder, I guess, as well. Yeah,
a grinder's an easy one though because it's all right, it's got a motor. It probably does kick up, quite a few hundred watts, but it's 30 seconds. Yeah. Whereas the coffee machine is 1,800 watts at full heating.
Yeah. We have an air fryer.
Yeah.
Which we bought when we got here and we researched.
Yeah.
That's what we use kind of in place of an oven.
Yep.
And that's been really efficient because you're using it, it's faster. It doesn't take ages to heat up. It's boom.
Well, it's a small
enchiladas
space.
in 40 minutes.
And when we used to live with an oven, we were cooking for 4, 5 plus people and you needed that oven space. Now it's mostly just us, or a component of the meal gets cooked in the air fryer. Some of it gets cooked on the barbecue.
I've got a dehydrator, I've got the pasta machine, I've got some appliances still in storage that I may or may not make use of in the future.
Yeah. But you would even time that seasonally. So if you think about like your appliance usage, there's some appliance usage that you go, well, we can learn to live without that, or we can make toast on the barbecue or campfire. And then there's other appliance usage that you could make like an annual decision about. All right, when am I going to do all my dehydrating? Because that's a fan and a small heating element that's left on 24/7 for multiple days. Let's do that in the summer.
That's when you're going to be preserving like that anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you're not hauling in those big sorts of yields in the wintertime. But also I've been looking into what we can do with, you can build it and do it by sun.
Like a sunlight dehydrator,
No, just like, it's like a mesh that you, like big racks.
Oh, for sun-dried, tomatoes
and all that sort of thing, yeah.
Do you think that using a slow cooker requires a whole day like adjustment, and that's probably why you weren't able to do it as much in the past? Because, you know, when we were busy running a business, it was up, straight out the door, straight to work.
No, like, because many mums do it. So many mums do it. And so many mums told me, you should just use your slow cooker more. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah, okay.
It was me. It was like I just relied on how I did things. And it was fine, like...
Because you didn't have to think about it.
No.
Yeah.
So, like, I know some people use a bread maker, and I'm about to enter my sourdough era. It's a scary one. But I've got the cast iron Dutch oven that I'm going to use for that. And I want to use the fire because our firewood is free.
Yep.
To use gas will be expensive.
Yeah, but you also just go, all right, well, this is a reality. Like, there is no full disconnect from society or whatever. Like, or if you want to do that, that's like caveman stuff. And, you know, there's people that are getting close to doing that. But if you want to drive a car, like, you can't make your own petrol. If you want to cook and... You know, you
need energy to do it, whether it's gas, whether it's fire, whether it's
you're
power.
making decisions about where that energy comes from and what activities you can actually do. And there's, a slow cooker is a good one. I never thought about it like this, but the more energy hungry activities that you can spread out over a longer period of time, so that you're not putting peak loads on your system as well.
Interesting.
Because you cook it at a lower temperature, right? So that heating element is just not kind of maxing out, and the system is kind of, you're giving it the opportunity to put it in a position where it's like either putting power into the batteries or putting power into the devices you're using. And if you've kind of evened out the devices you're using, then you're also evening out the amount that it can put into the batteries that you can store up.
Yeah.
But also, main thing is you're doing it during the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much wasted. I wish, and maybe we'll do this. Maybe we'll get to a point next year where we can put on an extra couple of batteries. I've got a few thoughts about how we can do that, because one of the first things we realised is just how much sunlight we're collecting and not turning.
And not using. Yeah.
Once we hit that, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
Once you're full, you're full.
Batteries are full.
Yeah.
And so then it's like,
But you can't store any more than your capacity.
I know. And that's a real different kind of thinking as well, because then you start going, well, what could I do that's going to use power? And that's not really a true economy either, because the real question should be, what can I do that's going to use power that I'd be doing anyway at a different time of day, at a lower energy point in the day, like watering the garden, using
the pump then.
The pump.
Yeah. Well, I've taken to doing my washing in the afternoon.
Yep.
And letting it dry overnight and taking it off the line kind of first thing in the morning, because, we were used to using a dryer.
Yeah, that's not possible.
That's definitely not possible. But, like, I wear a lot of linen, and you can't hang that out in the sun.
Right.
Drying's bad for your clothes, like it deteriorates them quicker, but sun damage is a thing as well.
Yep.
So I've kind of looped a couple of those things together.
Yeah.
In the wintertime, I had to wait like a whole day and a half, because in those really cold days, it was sunny, but Those clothes did not dry.
And then in the summertime,
they'll dry overnight.
Yeah,
easily.
But also summertime's our wet season. So, do you have to consider a second clothesline in the shed, for example, because you get 3 days of rain, and
we live in a tiny house with a tiny wardrobe.
Well, you're going to have to. Yeah, you're going to have to anyway, because there's no way we can run a dryer. But 3 days of rain also means, well, we're going to be running that generator anyway. Yeah. And I guess that's another thought as well. Like, if you are running the generator, I mean, the great thing about it is the system decides where the power goes when you're running the generator. And so if we, like this morning, got up, the system was off, batteries needed all the energy they could take, every bit of power that generator can make is going into the batteries, and then some of it going to a few things we were doing. So the great thing about running a generator is, like, you're going to use every bit of petrol that you put into it. And then when I saw, all right, batteries are at 40%, sunlight's at about 1,000 watts, I know we'll start to tap back into the batteries a little bit, but then we'll kind of go back up again as well.
Maybe.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to watch that today. So we've started at the lowest possible point that we can start in a day, and that is with the system off and the batteries completely drained. And now we've got cloud cover, rain coming this afternoon, might clear by 3 o'clock, but then that's when we're starting to.
Generator again.
I think we will. I think we'll have to turn it on.
But it's not like that sounds like the worst thing in the world. It's not. It's just a different way of thinking. Like, we've always got petrol, we've got the generator, we've got the power, we've got the system.
Yeah.
It's actually not like the end of the world if you lose power. You just have to put the generator on. That's not like this great cause for crisis.
Yeah.
It's just the thinking that goes into those, minute decisions. And the mindfulness aspect of it that ensures that you don't have to, like, it's 5 minutes to turn the generator on. Like, it's not an issue, but it's the mindfulness behind it, to be paying attention to what's happening all the time to ensure that the system's working the way that it should be.
And as long as you're not going into it with this romantic notion of, I'm going to, like, off-grid doesn't mean disconnected from reality and society.
I really like my shower. Like, really.
Yeah.
And I will have a long shower if I want to.
Yeah. But we've budgeted for that, so we know.
I'm not changing it.
$5 a day for gas to heat a hot water system. And, are there more energy efficient hot water? We could do a wood-fired hot water system. It's definitely a possibility, but that's a whole system we've got to set up and build and
let's be honest, that's
you
starting that fire early in the morning, because I'm a bit of a princess when it comes to my showers. I'm tough, but I need a shower.
You don't get to make all your own power.
No.
Like, there will be some things that you're going to use gas for. There's going to be some things, as in LPG, propane. There's going to be.
Maybe you should say energy rather than power, because we do make most of our own power. The generator is our supplement to make that power, so that's petrol power, and then gas gives us the energy for heating.
Right. So you don't get to
make your own energy.
You don't get to make all your own energy.
No.
Even heating with firewood. So we were doing that a little bit through the winter and putting that chimney up on the deck, and it would heat the tiny home. But that's still like, okay, well, I've got to now factor in an hour or so a day to collect firewood, make firewood. I've got to put petrol in my chainsaw to run my chainsaw to cut the firewood. Like, there's just no 100% disconnect from reality and the energy that you get from society either. Well, there is, but it's a totally different lifestyle, and that's not what we're doing. What we're doing is becoming more self-sufficient, but not completely self-sufficient.
Yeah, not cut off. Off-grid doesn't need to mean cut off. It's just...
And then, all right, you kind of go, oh, well, we're only 90%, kind of energy efficient or self-sufficient. But I think it's these mindfulness activities then that actually make you more of a sustainable minded person in other areas because you're thinking about it, because you're processing every one of those decisions and thinking about the activities that you're going to do during the day and during the year. Like, you become way more thoughtful about where you're going to get your energy from, what your personal energy and efforts are going to go into. True. And so because you're living more like that as a response to your energy supply, you're actually being, that 10% that you're maybe relying on LPG and petrol and other, you're actually offsetting that way more.
Just in your person.
Yeah, like the kind of food that you're going to eat and how, like the whole thing kind of goes into this one big picture of, it's not just about the power then, it's actually about a complete sustainability mindset.
Posture.
Yeah, I like that.
Me too. And I think, like, the desire to grow and adapt as a person, as a human, keeps you from getting stale. Like, the older we get, the more set in our ways we become.
Yep.
And it's harder to change.
Yep.
But you and I are committed to not being those people who don't grow and who don't change. And this is like the perfect sort of way to keep ourselves in the deep end of that.
Yeah.
Constantly challenging ourselves. Is there a better way to do this?
Yep.
Is this the best way? Is this the most helpful way for us to be able to do this?
And not even just asking that question, but going one step deeper and going, well, what is better? Just because it's cheaper, does that mean it's better? Or just because it's lower effort, does that mean it's better? Because sometimes those things aren't better. They're more convenient, maybe.
But it's what's better for us as well.
Yeah.
This isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
And better for us doesn't look like the same thing as better for somebody else. But it's just what is the better for us.
Yeah, but I guess that's what I'm saying about like mindfulness and mindset, is that this type of thinking doesn't just have to apply to, we're a bit radical maybe, going all out rural, off-grid, disconnected from utilities, and nearest town is 15 minutes away, and if you could even call it a town, that's not for everybody, but the way of thinking, I think, it absolutely should be. Like, how much has modern conveniences and just access to, we live in a pretty wealthy, abundant society, like especially our country, and so how much does that just make your thinking really lazy in terms of, I don't even have to think about, so I want to leave the ceiling fan on overnight. I don't have to know how many watts a ceiling fan draws. Or look, but it's the thing is, it is costing you, like, just because you don't do the maths on it. When we lived on the grid, when we worked, even corporate and all that sort of stuff.
Old house that cost so much extra as well
because the wiring was shot. But we you go, oh well, I'm earning a decent wage. Yeah. We'll just pay for it.
It is what it is.
And I never stopped to go, should I get an electrician to maybe rewire some of this? Should I switch to some 12-volt devices? Could I put some solar panels on my roof?
Yeah, it was not necessary to be mindful about that.
Oh, think about that. Imagine if the activities that we do now, we'd done back there. Like, even if we'd never solved the problem of our bad wiring in our old house, like, how much money might we have saved by watering the garden in the middle of the day, not at 6 a.m., because
we couldn't water the garden in the middle of the day. We were at work.
No, but you would solve that. You would put a timer on it. You would do those things to kind of go. Well, I mean, I guess that only applies like when you're running off solar. But then there's tariffs and things as well, right? And I never looked at tariffs. Who cares? I want to have a shower when I want to have a shower. All right, so they charge me more for it. Well, I still like showers. Knowing what you know now, 6 months ago, when we got here, or 12 months ago when we were thinking about it, would you still do it? And would you do anything different? Would you still do it?
I would, if I'd known years ago, I would have done it sooner.
Yeah, interesting.
I love it so much.
More than you thought you would?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because it's making me come back into the present. It's making me have to exist in the present.
What is, when you say it is making...
Or just like, how's our power going today? Do we need to pump water up today? Do I have the things necessary to be able to do what I want to do? And if not, how can I get to them?
Yeah.
I feel this deep sense of peace. Like, I feel like this is so right for us. I love it so, so much.
What would you have done different?
Put a dishwasher in the tiny house. No, a little bit. What would I have done different?
Yeah, like, reality is, a dishwasher is probably actually an easy decision because, all right, it's got a heating element and it's got a motor and it requires the pump to come on. But now let's just think through washing the dishes by hand. We're heating our water anyway. The pump has to come on to supply water anyway.
So this is all on film. So when I convince you to get a dishwasher, one of those little mini ones.
Yeah. So the only additional power usage is going to be the motor. And
we're getting a dishwasher. I don't know where we're going to put it.
How long does the, how long does the dishwasher cycle run for?
Hour.
Yeah. So
you just can't do it at night time. You'd need to like put it on in the morning.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. So, all right, maybe it's 600, 700, 800 watts of power just to run that motor.
Do you know why I really want a dishwasher? Because when you've got a dirty dish and the dishwasher's empty, you put your dirty dish in the dishwasher, right?
Yeah.
But now, where do the dirty dishes go?
All over the bench.
All over my little tiny house bench. Wow. It just makes it feel so... Anyway. Serious question, though. Would I have done anything differently?
I wish we'd had a little bit more time to research off-grid solar. Like, I'd only just started looking at it, thinking that I'd be able to quickly make a decision on it. And
because it took us so long to implement it.
Well, it was like 2-3 weeks of kind of like figuring out exactly how we were going to do it, where it was going to go, how many solar panels we would need, what batteries we'd need, how many of those we'd need. By the time we'd kind of made all those decisions, and that was a scary thought because it was many thousands of dollars that we knew we were putting on the line, so you only get to make that decision once.
Yeah.
So we probably cost ourselves maybe 2-3 weeks in just getting that decision right, but every day was $50 a day in fuel, so that was such a super expensive exercise.
I still remember the trigger of the Jenny running out of petrol.
When the motor starts dying.
When the motor starts dying and you're like, because if the motor died, then the internet went off and you couldn't work or you couldn't do something, and like the mad dash.
Oh, yeah, and it was, like Starlink's great, but sometimes it takes 30 minutes to come back on.
It did when we first moved.
Now it comes straight back on, but it was like 30 minutes before the internet could come back on, and so if you're working or... Would I have done anything differently? I think that's kind of beside the point. Would I have set anything up differently, or would I have done planned for it differently? No, I think that we've done quite well. Do you reckon when you designed the tiny home, because we were living on grid then, and we, had a few ideas about where this tiny home was going to go and whether or not it was going to... I mean, we did design it for us, knowing that maybe there was going to be a day when we ended up living in it.
Yeah, this was always going to be in our future.
But we also had this idea that we could maybe put it on a property somewhere and Airbnb it and all that sort of stuff. So do you reckon when you designed it that you were mindful of solar back then? Would you have done anything different with the design of the tiny home?
I would have put a fireplace in.
Yeah, right.
I would have put a fireplace in if I had known.
Yep.
We put an aircon in.
Like a reverse cycle.
We're never going to be able to use that heater. And to be honest, I'm not sure that I'd use the aircon. If we can do it right with ceiling fans and airflow, I think we're going to be okay.
Get this deck built so that we can get some real shade protecting the
afternoon sun, because it's brutal.
But we've even oriented, that was a decision. We've oriented, there's not just for the view, but we've oriented it based on, all right, that real heavy sun is going to be there, so the deck sort of needs to go there, so that you're getting all that temperature control from your shade and the airflow. Yeah, so probably just energy wise, probably a fireplace. I'm not sure where you put a fireplace and potentially we could still do it. It would be a bit messy and a bit more difficult, but we could. But in terms of the space of the kitchen and the appliances, I think that I was pretty mindful with that. But like you say, it's also the space that determines how much power you're going to use as well, because you just can't have 17 different kitchen appliances on your bench.
I don't want that.
Oh gosh, it would look like.
Oh. Yeah. No. Clutter, no thanks.
Lighting, we were already everyone uses LED lighting now, but even like putting festoon lights out here, they're all LED festoon lights.
I would have put less lights in our tiny house. I was worried that it would be dingy.
Yeah, okay.
But we could have gotten away with half of it.
Yeah, but they're so 5 watts or 9 watts or something.
Hardly anything.
It's so funny that I know all that now. Those 4 downlights is 36 watts. You can turn them off. And...
Not really save yourself much at all.
No. Well, yes and no, because it's actually, and it's so funny now, because like back in the day, like I remember going, like Dad being like, don't leave that on overnight, like I'm not a power company, and
we are now
sort of going like, and in my mind going, it doesn't cost anything, like it's just standby mode, like how much power is it really using? But I have no idea, but actually it is a little bit, and then every device is a little bit more, and then you add up all those little bits, and then all of a sudden all your power trips at 3 a.m. because the PlayStation's got a standby mode, and all your devices you put on charge because you forgot about it that day, and all those little things. It's so funny.
But there's one phrase that we keep saying: we got to live.
Yep.
Like if it means an hour of the generator at night time on a day like yesterday, we got to live. So, like sometimes, like there's the ideal, and then there's reality. And sometimes you're filming all day and everything's flat and you need to start filming again first thing in the morning. You got to charge your stuff overnight.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you really just want a hot chocolate at night time.
Yeah, so you put the
coffee machine. You got to live. Yeah. And we're not skimping on the living at all. And it but we understand what that cost is, and we understand what is necessary for us to be able to do that, and how to offset it if necessary, or just... That's going to cost us $5 in fuel.
Yep.
We don't go down to get Guzman's every day anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We got to live.
Yep.
And so we commit to living. We commit to living this way, and we figure it out.
Yep.
In the middle of ideal and reality.
Yeah, well, you do actually figure it out.
Every day.
You're literally calculating all of those things every day.
Yep.
Costs, energy usage, all of that stuff. You're not just going, well, that's a future problem or whatever. I've got my paycheck that'll cover that anyway. And
Yeah.
That's true.
I think we're doing all right. Cheers.
So, cheers. We just cheers to coffee. That's really right.
We just cheers empty coffee.
Well, it's cold.
People pay a lot of money for iced coffee.